President Trump ramped up his rhetoric against what he calls the radical left yesterday when he was asked if the alleged shooter worked alone.
I don't know. I mean, I can tell you he didn't work alone on the internet because it seems that he became radicalized on the internet. That's just by watching same things that you're watching and hearing. It looks like he became radicalized over the internet. And it seems like he has wonderful parents, brought in a wonderful neighborhood, smart guy, great boards, great marks, great student. And then something happened to him over a fairly short period of time. It looks like he was radicalized over the internet, and it's radicalized on the left. He's a left. I have a lot of problems with the left, and they get protected, and they shouldn't be protected.
Meanwhile, Vice President J.D. Vance guest hosted a special episode of The Charlie Kirk Show yesterday. The vice president was joined by a lineup of high-ranking Trump administration officials, including Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller. Vance argued that the left was largely to blame for political violence, while Miller vowed vengeance in the wake of Kirk's murder.
People on the left are much likelier to defend and celebrate political violence. This is not a both sides problem. If both sides have a problem, one side has a much bigger and malignant problem, and that is the truth we must be told. And while our side of the aisle certainly has its crazies, it is a statistical fact that most of the lunatics in American politics today are proud members of the far left. We can thank God that most Democrats don't share these attitudes, and I do, while acknowledging that something has gone very wrong with a lunatic fringe, a minority, but a growing and powerful minority on the far left. So when you see someone celebrating Charlie's murder, call them out, and hell, call their employer. We don't believe in political violence, but we do believe in civility. And there is no civility in the celebration of political assassination.
We are going to channel all of the anger that we have over the organized campaign that led to this assassination to uproot and dismantle these terrorist networks. The organized doxing campaigns, the organized riots, the organized street violence, the organized campaigns of dehumanization, vilification, posting people's addresses, combining that with messaging that's designed to trigger and incite violence, and the actual organized cells that carry out and facilitate the violence. It is a vast domestic terror movement. And with God as my witness, we are going to use every resource we have at the Department of Justice, Homeland Security, and throughout this government to identify, disrupt, dismantle, and destroy these networks and make America safe again for the American people. It will happen, and we will do it in Charlie's name.
More on this in just a moment. Mika?
President Trump was also asked yesterday about the appearance of a double standard on lowering flags after political violence. Here is that exchange.
In retrospect, given all of the moving ways that this White House has paid tribute to Charlie Kirk,
right,
do you think it would have been fitting to lower the flags to half-staff when Melissa Boardman, the Minnesota House Speaker, was gunned down by an assassin as well?
I'm not familiar. The
Minnesota House Speaker, a Democrat, who was assassinated this summer.
Well, if the governor had asked me to do that, I would have done that. But the governor of Minnesota didn't ask me. I didn't. I wouldn't have thought of that, but I would have if somebody had asked me. People make requests for the lowering of flag, and oftentimes you have to say no because it would be a lot of lowering. The flag would never be up. Had the governor of Minnesota asked me to do that, I would have done that gladly.
Actually, days after the president said he wouldn't even call the governor of Minnesota. He said, why would he call Tim Walz? I really don't know where to begin. I really don't know where to begin. Charlie Kirk's savage murder is violence not only against Charlie Kirk, against his wife, against their beautiful children. It's also violence against the First Amendment, against free speech, and against American democracy. Those who would use that tragic event to try to stifle free speech, which we will get to later, talking about stifling free speech and going after people they consider to be political enemies. Certainly didn't hear much of what Charlie Kirk had to say when he said we have to allow all kinds of speech. And I must say, I have been baffled over the past several days by people like Stephen Miller talking about this being a one-sided issue. When just a few months ago, the most powerful Democrat in the state of Minnesota was gunned down in her family's home. And after she was shot to death in her family's home this June, her husband was gunned down and killed in their family home. Melissa was an elected leader and the leader of the Democratic Party, the Democratic caucus in the Minnesota House. She taught Sunday school. She and her husband left 2 young children gunned down in their own home. So, who is Melissa Hortman? That's who Melissa Hortman was. And it's, again, baffling to me that the same people who are calling for civil war were the same people who said absolutely nothing when she was shot. Or maybe we should talk that same night about the madman who had a hit list of 42 Democrats on it, who then went over and shot 9 times the state senator that Melissa Hortman worked with. John Hoffman took 9 shots to his body. His wife, Yvette, took 8 shots to her body inside their family home. And then the gunman escaped with, again, a hit list with 42 other Democratic names on it, including Tammy Baldwin's, the state senator, or the United States senator from Wisconsin. This followed Josh Shapiro having his home, an attempted arson, trying to burn down his home with his wife and his children sleeping inside of it. His goal, he admitted, was to burn the house down, find the Democratic governor of the state of Pennsylvania, and then beat him to death with a hammer. This, of course, reminds us of the madman that broke into Nancy Pelosi's home, screaming, "Where's Nancy?" A chant eerily reminiscent of what we heard on January 6th, the day that everyone who is talking about civil war would like you to forget forever. But that madman goes in and critically wounds Paul Pelosi, I believe an 82-year-old man who will never be the same, who just barely survived death. And these same people who were saying, J.D. Vance saying, oh, our side doesn't celebrate this, our side doesn't celebrate that. Well, first of all, let me just say, anybody who celebrates political violence is sick. They are sick. Sick. Those who try to brush aside political violence when it's the other side that gets shot or gets beaten or gets burned out of their family homes, they're sick. What did we hear after Paul Pelosi, an 82-year-old man, get brutalized and hit in the head with? What did we hear? We heard laughter. We heard jokes repeatedly from the President of the United States. I remember watching him speak to the California Republican Party, and they died laughing. They thought it was hysterical that an 82-year-old man was almost beaten to death in his own home by a hammer. Now, I know you, like me, were horrified when we heard that happen. I know you, like me, were horrified when you heard that Steve Scalise and others were gunned down while they were practicing baseball for the Congressional Baseball Game by a left-wing freak, a left-wing madman. I know that. Just like you froze when you heard that a right-wing madman gunned down Melissa Hortman. Who is Melissa Hortman? That's who Melissa Hortman was. And how you can sit back sanctimoniously and say that this is a civil war and it's all one side, when we see the pain and the agony visited upon families and children of Charlie Kirk, of the Hortmans, of the Pelosi's. Oh, no, don't do that. Don't do that. You're saying, oh, they deserved it. Some of you are saying, oh, they deserved it. They're Democrats. Don't do that. Don't do that. They're all Americans. They're all Americans. They're all precious in God's eyes. And the attack against them must be condemned as strongly as possible. What we did here when it happened to Charlie, what we did here when it happened to Melissa, what we did here when it happened to Paul, what we did when it happened to Steve, what we will do if violence continues. And let us pray it does not continue. But to use Charlie Kirk's death, or if Democrats tried to use Melissa Hortman's death, leaders, I'm talking about elected leaders, not freaks on the outer fringes of social media. It's just despicable. It's just absolutely despicable. I don't know who you think you're lying to, but we know there's a problem on both sides. We have to come together, or this will continue. And Willie, there's even talk about going after, quote, hate speech. I love for hate speech to be muted. I'd love for people to speak more civilly. But as conservatives brought up last night, it was Charlie Kirk who said we have to let everybody speak. And we have to debate it out, and it's going to get rough. It's going to be a rough and tumble to politics. But my God, the fact that these people are pretending that this is just a problem of the freaks on the left and not the freaks on the right, it's disgusting. And it's disgusting because they're saying, oh, we're going after George Soros. Oh, we're going to go after left-wing organizations. Really? Well, what right-wing organizations do they go after when Melissa and her husband were shot to death and their two children were left as orphans? I didn't hear it then. This is the assassination of Charlie Kirk. It's an unspeakable tragedy that's rocked so many people in this country. But I would say this is not the time to try to use that death to gain political points. And that's what I've been seeing from far too many people on cable news channels and out of politicians in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, and it's not just media personalities. As you say, the Vice President of the United States yesterday, the sad reality of our political culture now is the minute this awful tragedy happened last Wednesday that turned our stomachs, the minute we heard the news, and God, after we saw the video, made it even worse for most decent Americans, not the freaks on the margins that some celebrated. But the sad reality is that people waited to hear about the shooter, and in some circles were hoping it was someone from the other side so they could advance a political argument about why this happened. And now we're seeing that right now. You